So hello and welcome everyone. Good afternoon to the Riverside County Law Library's virtual resource fair featuring presentations from the Self-Help Center at the Court, the Lexis Digital Library, which is a service the library offers, Inland Counties Legal Services, and Inland Empire Latino Lawyers Association, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and the Law Library. So the presentation that is happening right now is the English presentation from Inland Empire Latino Lawyers Association. The link for all of the presentations today is the same, so you can pop in and out, and each session will be recorded. I'm also raffling off a prize, and so I will put that link in the chat, which I will be monitoring the chat during the presentation. So if you've already attended previous sessions, it's just you can enter one time, but if you haven't entered, go ahead and do that now. And I will introduce Veronica from the acronym for Inland Empire Latino Lawyers Association is IALA. So Veronica from IALA will be presenting, and welcome. You have the floor.
Well, thank you so much for having us, Jenna, and putting all of this together. It's greatly appreciated. I want to confirm, I think you guys may actually see the wrong view of my screen when I share it. If you're able to see the presentation, or does it show you the notes?
It's showing us the note, like how it has like the first screen and then the next slide too. It's not, now it is just the first screen.
Perfect. I think I got it all figured out. So I'd like to introduce myself, as Jenna already did, but my name is Veronica Garcia, and I'm the staff attorney, clinic manager, and pro bono coordinator at IALA Legal Aid. As Jenna mentioned as well, that's short for Inland Empire Latino Lawyers Association, and we're a nonprofit organization that also provides free legal services to low-income and underserved residents of San Bernardino and Riverside counties. IALA is a little bit unique in some ways. We do work closely with ICLS, so we do have a lot of overlapping services compared to that organization. We are able to service a high number of Spanish-speaking clients, and one thing that sets us apart is also being able to serve undocumented community members. So as ICLS mentioned, they do receive predominantly federal funding, which does restrict them from helping different types of community members, and sometimes that is relating to undocumented community members. So that's where we definitely help to fill that gap. Similar to ICLS, we have been in the Inland Empire for a prolonged period of time. I believe 1985 is when the organization received their exempt and nonprofit status. So we've been pretty active in the community, and again, we do work pretty much side by side with ICLS. So you see a lot of volunteers that volunteer at both organizations. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit today, because we are a bit smaller, so we don't have many attorneys on staff. We rely pretty much exclusively on the ability of pro bono volunteers. And what that means is it's attorneys in the community who maybe have full-time jobs, maybe they're new attorneys who volunteer their time outside of their normal office hours. So it may be somebody who works in one area of law, but really wants to volunteer and kind of help the community in another. IALA is one of those places they can come to get that experience and then to assist the community. So some of the things that we see with our clients and as barriers that they have to deal with, especially for self-represented or pro per, which is just another way of saying self-represented, there's a lot of confusing aspects, and some of those involve legal terms. Anytime you receive legal documents, they don't always use the easiest way to describe something. They use complicated words, which sometimes have a very specific meaning. There's complicated procedures, lots of very deadline-specific timelines, a lot of things that you really have to stick to and comply with. Otherwise, your case may get thrown out or defaulted, or other things may happen with your case without you being fully aware what's going on. Obviously, the forms themselves are confusing. I don't know if any of you have ever, picked up a packet for a particular legal issue, and it may even just be a few pages, but it's extremely confusing if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't have a legal education or legal background, or you haven't dealt with it before. And then, of course, dealing with opposing counsel. If you're dealing with somebody who has an attorney, you're going to have to deal with this. And sometimes it can be a little intimidating. I'll actually say almost all the time it's going to be intimidating if you don't have an attorney and the other party does, because they somewhat use that as a little bit of a leverage, or it may feel like that. So that's another barrier that we see some of our clients facing. The next thing is crowded courtrooms. Now, obviously, COVID kind of addressed some of this in that a lot of hearings are being conducted remotely. Now, that's starting to change, and in some counties, such as San Bernardino, they have already brought a lot of people back and do have many in-person hearings. Riverside is moving in that direction, but hopefully we'll see that they do retain some of the remote options for our clients and for the community in general, because there are a lot of problems that come with forcing someone to come to a courthouse. Obviously, there's high stakes conflict. The cases we help with, which I'll get into in a little bit, involve things like family law, so child custody, child support, divorce, housing. These are all things that really impact an individual's life. Getting a disfavorable result in any of those areas can be extremely stressful and can create, other problems in your life if you're not fully aware of what's going on. One of the main things that we see with our clients, again, is because we do service a lot of undocumented community members, there are often language barriers. And in these situations, while the court can appoint a translator, unfortunately, we'd see that they don't always really slow down for that translator to be able to fully explain what's going on to some of the litigants who are non-English speaking. So that's something we see and is quite unfortunate in the court process in general. And then the last thing I see as one of the major barriers is legal fees. There's often a lot of apprehension for clients when, maybe they know they want to file a divorce, but they think it's going to be an expensive process. Maybe they know that they want to file for paternity for their kids and try to get child support, but they think it's going to be an expensive process. And oftentimes it can be if you don't qualify for fee waivers and if you're hiring an attorney. But most of the time for the clients that we're able to assist, we are able to complete fee waivers for them so that they're able to obtain that and not have to worry about at least court fees. Now, there's different levels of legal assistance, and IELA assists predominantly in the one here in the bubble. Obviously, there's different levels, which include like the self-help center, which both courthouses do have, and they have remote options. So if you're just looking for some guidance and you don't necessarily want to wait for an appointment, you just need to get a quick answer now, self-help is usually going to be sufficient for that. They're able to give you information. There's also informational websites, and then of course, downloadable court forms. And then of course, our local law libraries are another source of community education. The next level would be where we fall in for most of our cases, which is advice and document preparation. So at our organization, what we're able to provide you with is a brief counsel advised session with one of our pro bono attorneys. And then from that point forward, if your case is in need of document preparation and you need some guidance on how to proceed with your case, that's what we're able to provide you with. So unfortunately, for the most part, we do not represent in court. So this will be you essentially representing yourself, which is what they call pro per. So you're representing yourself, but we will help you to get through the process and give you that guidance before you move through each step. The next level would be like pro bono assistance from non-legal aid organizations. Maybe there's different workshops at different paralegal programs, or hiring a paralegal at times who can help you with some of your documents, depending on what sort of time frame you need them. And then of course, different law schools have different programs that are supervised by attorneys where the law students are able to assist with different issues. And then of course, there's limited scope representation. So we are able to assist at this level in some of our cases, and I'll get into that in a bit. But this is where an attorney represents you for a limited aspect of your case. So for example, if you have a paternity case and you guys are going to court on child visitation. We may have an attorney who's able to go to court and assist with that limited representation for that hearing. But again, I'll get into when that is available for our clients. And then, of course, formal representation, which is if you hire an attorney. And obviously, that removes a lot of your legwork, but it is at a price. And obviously, there is different levels of pricing that you'll see from different attorneys. Now, relating to the areas that we practice, we assist with family law cases, limited civil cases, name change applications, guardianships, conservatorships, landlord tenant law, and then we offer extended services for what's called our One Step Further or teen parent program. In the past, we did provide record clearing services, but there's currently a hiatus on that program. So at this point, we are not able to extend an offer for those services. Now, getting a little further into family law, similar to what some of you may have seen in the ICLS presentation, family law can cover a variety of types of cases. And this can be everything from divorce, maybe a legal separation, maybe you're dealing with paternity, and then it's just child custody, child visitation, or child support you're dealing with. And then, of course, restraining orders. Most commonly in the family law arena, it's going to be a domestic violence restraining order. And then if you already have existing orders, we can also assist with modifications of existing orders. And then any sort of division of assets or debt assignments. Now, relating to guardianships and conservatorships, we're able to assist with guardianships. Most of our cases involve minors who are not under the jurisdiction of Department of Family and Children Services or CPS. These types of cases are very common, like with a grandmother who's caring for her grandkids. I think that that's probably a majority of the guardianship cases that we see come through our doors. There's often cases where, a parent is going to be incarcerated or a parent knows that they're going to be gone for an extended period of time and they may consent to the guardianship. Or of course, there's cases where the parent's not present for one reason or another. And so that's why the party who's taking care of the children needs to seek guardianship. What it does is essentially pauses the legal rights of the parent. It's different from adoption, different from having CPS involved, because those generally terminate parental rights. Guardianship is seen as like pushing a pause button to where the person who has them in their care will be the one able to make those important decisions in the children's lives. Now, next we have conservatorship. Most of the cases that we assist with these types are often referred from Inland Regional Center, and this is primarily for young adults with developmental disabilities that restrict them from making decisions in their daily lives. Now, what that means is maybe you have somebody who's, moderately or severely autistic, maybe somebody who has Down syndrome but is unable to function in a day-to-day basis, maybe unable to pay bills or do things like that relating to their safety or welfare. So very similar to guardianship, but generally for adults over the age of 18. And the next service we're able to assist with is civil law. And this means often when you receive collections. So that's probably the majority of cases we see that we're able to assist with. This means that, this does not mean that we can assist with a civil lawsuit. So imagine you slip and fall somewhere and you want to sue somebody. Unfortunately, that's not something we can assist with. For that, you'll need to hire a private attorney. But what we do assist with are collection defenses, demand letters, civil harassment restraining orders. Now, that differs a little bit from domestic violence restraining orders, because these are generally against somebody who's not family, maybe against your neighbor, maybe a workplace restraining order against a coworker. Those are handled in the civil arena opposed to family law. The next type of thing we can assist with in this area is a wage garnishment. And then, of course, you'd receive counsel and advice regarding any of these issues. And then I think bank levies are the final one, which usually overlap with a collections defense or wage garnishment. Next, we have restraining orders. So I mentioned this just a little bit right now about how civil restraining orders and domestic violence restraining orders overlap and are different. Civil restraining orders are eligible in situations where you don't qualify for domestic violence. And what the court requires is that you be a certain relationship to qualify for a domestic violence restraining order. So usually that's a spouse, a parent, a child. If it's an extended relative like a cousin, then chances are they're outside that scope of who you can get a domestic violence restraining order against. It's going to qualify for a civil restraining order. And then, of course, there's elder abuse restraining orders. For those, you do have to be over 65 or a dependent adult with certain mental or physical disabilities. So this is where it kind of overlaps with conservatorship. If it's somebody who you have conservatorship over and they need a restraining order against somebody, that would fall into the elder abuse arena. And the next area of law is going to be landlord tenant. Now, this is something that is highly popular right now, unfortunately. We do see a lot of people coming to us for advice relating to their rights. We see a lot of tenants coming to us for demand and advocacy letters. For example, they have a landlord who, is essentially a slumlord, letting things go unrepaired. Maybe there's issues that they've presented to the landlord on numerous occasions. In those types of situations, we can sometimes assist writing a demand letter or an advocacy letter. Or maybe your landlord is threatening to evict you illegally and hasn't taken any of those legal steps that are necessary. So those are some of the situations. And then, of course, we can assist with an unlawful detainer answer. So I know that ICLS mentioned they have a clinic Monday through Wednesday. So we do often see a lot of clients come to us on Thursdays and Fridays, but we're available every day to assist with unlawful detainer answers. And we're also able to provide COVID-19 specific advice. So if you have a situation that involves your potential landlord tenant obligations not being met, we can give you some counsel and advice regarding that. The next program I'm going to talk about for a little bit is our One Step Further program. Now, this is designed for teen parents. And what that means is that we're able to present and offer extended services for clients who are eligible for this program. Some of the goals of this program are to educate teen parents regarding paternity, child support, custody, and sometimes, unfortunately, restraining orders. While we have seen a decrease in teen parents in the numbers, our goal is to decrease teen parent dropout rates, decrease poverty by encouraging support from both parents and pursuing the best interests of the child through the court orders. So different programs we offer is an educational presentation. So we've done this with partner organizations whose clients are predominantly teen parents. So that's where we can go and just present a general presentation relating to what some of their rights are. And just in case they do have issues, make ourselves known and available in the event that our assistance is needed. They're able to obtain a consultation with an attorney. If they're under 18, they do need to have their parent or guardian consent, and it would be based on their parent or guardian's income if they're under 18. Now, this is a little bit different from our normal programs because we not only provide document preparation, but we're also able to provide pro bono court representation. So when I mentioned that some programs allow us to offer a little bit more in terms of services, this is one of those examples. So in some of those teen parent cases, we're able to have an attorney make a limited scope appearance with you. And this is not just in family law cases. We recently had a client who had a guardianship case that was filed against her. So we were able to assist with in-court representation for that matter. And obviously it's something that, can be overwhelming for an adult. So, I mean, just imagine how much more confusing and overwhelming it can be for somebody who's dealing with having their first child and, at a very young age. So we try to help to fill that gap and provide services that might not otherwise be available to them. So a little bit about how we help and how we offer our services. All of our clients fall within a 0 to 200% federal poverty guideline. Now, what that means is that we do have eligibility criteria. It means that we do have to have our clients fill out an application. They're going to disclose income, assets, all of that information that might be related to their case and might not be. This is just for our requirement and making sure that our grantors know that we're servicing clients who fall within this criteria. Now, our goal is to provide legal assistance to clients within 1 to 2 weeks of qualifying. So say, for example, you apply for services on a Monday, you submit your application, and then it's reviewed on Tuesday. Once your case is, your documents are reviewed and we determine if you're able to meet our criteria and we're able to take you on as a client and open your case, 1 week from you being sent your signatures and signing it, that's when we would hope to provide you with your services. We do rely solely, as I mentioned, on the generosity of pro bono attorneys in the community. So again, they're volunteering their time with us, so it's something we do have to take into consideration. We wish that we could set up appointments, 24/7 and have open availability all the time. But unfortunately, because we do rely on volunteers, we do have to take that into account, and it can vary on a weekly basis. So for example, this week we have what's called a Zoom clinic, and that's with one of our large firm partners in the area, and they send attorneys via Zoom to meet with a large number of our clients. So depending on what's going on that week will depend on when you get your consultation. And of course, all of our volunteers are trained in the area of law that they're providing services, and all of their cases are supervised by myself as a staff attorney or one of our board members or mentor attorneys who are helping to guide some of the younger or newer experienced attorneys. Now, of course, we used to provide services in person. So IELA was a walk-in, you show up at the clinic during a specific time, and that was when you received your legal services. But due to COVID, now everything is done remotely. So that means that you're going to submit your application remotely. You're going to communicate with us to a degree remotely and sometimes on the phone, but it will be via email, via phone call, very rarely in person. Now, we do want to keep in mind that we do have clients who are not able to use technology or maybe aren't comfortable with technology. In that case, we do everything possible to make it comfortable for them in receiving services. So we will make appointments for clients to come in and fill out their application. We'll make appointments for clients to come in and potentially use our resources if needed. So we do have some clinics coming up that will offer computers so the clients can consult with the attorneys via Zoom, but using our technology. And we can help walk them through that process and help get them ready to go for that consultation. So the steps relating to our process involve that pre-screening and income and residency requirement. I mentioned the income requirement, and the residency requirement is pretty basic. What we ask is that our clients reside in San Bernardino or Riverside County. Now, that means that you can have a divorce that's filed out in Orange County, and you're served with those court documents because you just moved to Riverside. We can help you with that. Even though your case is out of these counties, it's only required that you reside here. So that can be, anywhere in California. So one requirement is that your case be in California, because our attorneys are licensed to practice in California, not in other states. So we've seen incidents where maybe somebody moves out here from Arizona and they want to get a divorce, but unfortunately, they don't meet the residency requirement required by the court quite yet. So as long as they live here and they want to file here, then we can go ahead and proceed with their case. Now, if their case can only be open in Arizona, if they want to file, for example, a divorce, California does require you live here for 6 months. So if that client didn't want to wait and just wanted to get it done, then we'd advise them to seek consultation out in Arizona. But of course, there's always different situations and different scenarios. Things like domestic violence and legal separation have very specific rules. So of course, we would want to talk to you and figure out what your case is about before giving you any sort of specific guidance on how to proceed. Now, the legal consultation is with one of our pro bono attorneys. After the consultation, then the pro bono attorney will communicate their notes to us, and our staff will be given recommendations in terms of what the document should include. So oftentimes, if it's a divorce or something relating to child support, child visitation, the attorney will give us a little brief summary of what they talked about with the client, and then our staff or interns will complete the documents. Once the documents are ready, the client's contacted to receive their documents, and this is where they get the instructions on how to file pro per and how to navigate the next steps in their legal process. So at that handout, you'll be given information on what you need to serve the other party, what you need to do to file your documents, and then what to expect next. So oftentimes you're going to receive a hearing date, give you some basics on what to expect moving forward. Now, say 6 months down the line, you're not happy with what the court ordered and you want to change things. Well, that's when you do have to start our process over again. So because we're not a traditional law firm and we are a legal aid organization, we do have to close out our cases on our end within a relatively short period of time. So unlike a regular law firm, we do not just keep your case open as long as you're paying for services, because obviously we don't charge anything for services. So after you're given your documents, we close your case out. And then if you want assistance in the future, you come back and you apply again. And of course, IOLA staff does remain available to address any questions or concerns. Maybe there's an issue when you take your documents to file and you need some clarification on what you can do next. And now what you can receive during your consultation and what the expectation should be, you'll receive legal advice. So this is something that only an attorney can provide. So if you call our office or any law firm's office, generally the person you first speak with won't be able to really answer your legal questions. Now they can provide some basics about what the procedure is, something that's just more about, step one, step two. But in terms of legal advice and what your options are in proceeding legally, that is something that you do have to speak with an attorney regarding. So during that consultation, you will receive some legal advice from the attorney, and then maybe some specifics on what the applicable law is. So obviously different situations bring up different areas of law, and the attorney is going to provide you with some of that information on what law applies and why. This is obviously a good example or an easy example is, relating to property. So if you're getting a divorce and in California, you don't know if something is community property or not, which means it belongs to both of you, and that's something that we'll go over during your consultation relating to each piece of property. So say you have 2 cars and a house, the attorney is going to talk about how each of those items is categorized and why. Now, all of that is related to when you get something and when you get married. So those are all information details that we're going to get through that intake process. Now, the document preparation, this is something that happens behind the scenes, and you fortunately don't have to deal with any of that. So you don't have to go through the forms and try to navigate what different terminology means, what box to check. And that's something that we're going to be able to assist with and complete for you. And now, of course, depending on the county you're in, this is something that if you qualify for a fee waiver, you may be eligible for e-filing without a fee. Now that's only in Riverside County. So unfortunately, San Bernardino County does not offer any sort of e-filing. Now, I mentioned this earlier about our citizenship guidelines. So while we do not have any national requirements, we do have different requirements relating to income based on what your citizenship status is. So for example, if you're a US citizen or a permanent legal resident, there is a different guideline that we follow compared to our undocumented clients. There's also different limitations relating to assets. So because we were designed to assist low-income residents of both San Bernardino and Riverside counties, say for example, you own rental property and you own the house you live in, while you may not have an exorbitant amount of money, you may be over our income cap or you may be over our asset cap. So that's things that we look at during that intake process. But Riverside and San Bernardino counties are the two counties we serve residents of. So that's really the only citizenship requirements. Now, of course, some of the things that we strive to provide, as Paulette mentioned during the ICLS presentation, one thing we really want to make clear is that what we strive to provide is high quality legal services. So that means that we want to try to answer all of your questions. We want to try to make sure that you understand what your options are moving forward and what the process is going to look like moving forward. Because again, there's a lot of things that serve as barriers and can be very complicated and very confusing in many of these legal areas. Obviously, we all have cultural sensitivity relating to specific issues that may be unique to you or somebody else you refer to us. Not every type of household is run the same, and that's something we do take into consideration, and our pro bono attorneys are aware and trained on cultural sensitivity. About 80% of our staff is Spanish speaking, and we do have access to translators in other languages if needed. So that's something that we definitely strive to provide. We want to make sure that our Spanish speaking community in Riverside and San Bernardino knows there's somewhere they can go to get this sort of free legal help, because a lot of organizations aren't able to provide it or aren't able to provide it on demand. And as I mentioned, we generally do not offer courtroom representation, but in very limited circumstances, such as those teen parent one step further cases, we are able to offer that. And of course, it is at the discretion of our pro bono attorney. And it will depend on that case, because every case that we take on like that is very unique. No two are the same, so I can't say specifically what type of representation we'd be able to offer for how long. Now, of course, as Paulette mentioned with ICLS, we do rely on our volunteers. So that's something where, you know, obviously, if you know anybody who is interested in volunteering with a legal aid organization, and that's not necessarily someone who is interested in becoming a lawyer or paralegal, but maybe somebody who just has that desire to assist in this field. Maybe they went through, you know, a messy divorce themselves and had to pay out a lot of money for an attorney and understand that struggle and really want to make sure that they're making an impact and trying to help other people who've been in that situation. So we do try to have very personalized volunteer opportunities. With a lot of services being remote, I think it does offer us the ability to work with potential volunteers and offer them opportunities that fit within their schedules. So that can be something, you know, obviously for attorneys, they can do consultations remotely. So that means via Zoom or via phone. And then, of course, for interns, we do have a good relationship and an ongoing relationship with UC Riverside. And historically, we've had a number of interns come from there, and many later coming to us for employment as well. So we are very, you know, in tune with our community and do try to have and foster those ongoing relationships, and also look at relationships we can build with new organizations in the area. But of course, let's see here. That's going to be the end of my slideshow. So right now I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions. I know I saw some things in the chat.
The chat was mostly from me.
Okay.
So I don't see any questions, but